All right, so our drywall is in, and now I'm going to show you everything you need to know in order to actually compound this and make it look finished. All right, we got our booty joint, also known as butt joint. So we have our seams, screws that we have to patch up as well. And we have our inside corner here and at the ceiling that we're going to basically focus on in this video. All right, so we're going to be using two different types of compound. First is Easy Sand 90, and then the other one is the Black Lid Proform, basically like your mid-weight compound. So I know there's different types of Easy Sand. There's 45, 20, and 5. I'm going with the 90 because I'll be able to do 2 hands of compound today, and it doesn't dry up as fast as the other ones do. Easy Sand 45 and 20 and 5 just dry so fast that I just can't keep up with it. So today's goal is going to be to do 2 hands of compound with this, and then tomorrow this is going to be the topping coat. So we do the top coat with this mid-weight. I don't like to use the blue lid compound just because it sands off way too easy, and then sometimes you over sand it, you don't really have as much control over it. So this is a little bit harder to sand, but I feel like it's easier to actually make it look nice. And for all of our seams and joints and corners, we're going to use actually our paper. I believe that paper is superior to fiberglass mesh. Fiberglass mesh should only be used on like patching, if you're patching a hole or anything like that. Otherwise, always use paper. All right, so we're going to mix our Easy Sand 90. It's always better to mix it in smaller batches. This way it's always workable. If you mix a big batch, it's going to start drying up on you, and then the tape just won't stick to it as good. So the first hand of compound is basically entirely done with a 6-inch compound knife. So I really like to use one of these little tubs. So all I'm going to do now is dump out a pretty good amount of it, of compound, right into the tub itself. And then this way I can just have a bunch of it and don't have to keep going back to the bucket. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is our booty joint. And that's because, as you can see, there's room right here. You see that? So this was designed, the seams were designed just to be able to fit one of these guys in there. So what I want to do is, as this is going to go in here, basically it's going to hide inside that little valley as well and not really protrude as much. Because if I do this one first, then it almost flattens it out. And then if you go with this one over the top of it, then you're creating this bump. And then you have to compound even wider and wider. So I'm going to do my butt joint first and then my seam. All right, so I'm just going to grab some of our compound, get right to the top here, and then drag it down. When you're dragging it, it always works better. If you just go straight down, you have that booger on the sides that kind of create like that. But if you drag and kind of angle your knife to the side like this, those boogers never really fall. Put on a good base. You're not trying to see your sheetrock through it. You want to make sure that there's a good base there. This way you get no bubbles. All the way into this little channel. See, like right here, I can see the sheetrock right through that. That's a little too light. So I'm going to come back and just add a little bit over the top of that. Now I'm going to put this on there. Like that. Hold it in place. You can see our seam there. Put it there. And then press it down as well. So a big mistake that I see people do when they're compounding is that during their first hand of compound, they squeeze out way too much. I want to slide it down a little bit. They squeeze out way too much material. So what I want to do is just come right down there, down the seam here on the side, like that. And then come on the seam right here. And I'm just putting slight little pressure on the sides. Bang, that is done. Leave it, let it be. Too many people squeeze very hard and they get a lot of that compound out, and then there's just nothing to hold that paper in, and that's why you get your bubbles. All right, so next I'm going to do my seams. And when you're doing your seams, basically you're doing the same thing. I'm going to get a glop of compound like this. Go here, keep the pressure down. Oh my gosh, that's bad. That's awful. So you can just go like this, keep it flat. The faster you move, honestly, like the less it falls down. Just like I was saying before, you want to make sure that there's enough compound there to actually glue this piece in. Way too many people, again, like I was saying before, squeeze out just too much of it on the first hand. The first hand is the most important because that's what creates the bubbles and that is what kind of glues it in. So you see where a seam is. I'm going to put that right there, hold that with my putty knife, and then follow that seam along and just kind of press that in lightly so I can hold that there. So what I'm going to do now is basically keep my pressure right here on this side of my putty knife, like right here, and then just collect the boogers on the side. And then here, I want to keep my pressure at the top, and then collect my boogers right there. And then lastly, I'm just going to come right down the middle, lay my putty knife pretty flat, right here, lay it pretty flat, and just give a nice little, basically, squeeze there. I know there's a whole bunch of cool tools that you could use to do this stuff. Well, we don't have those tools. We just got these tools that we're going to use in order to get this done. Any one of those tools that you see that are super, super cool is an absolute overkill if you're just doing a bathroom or just one room. That's more something you'd get for a whole house type of project. All right, so now let me show you how to do this. All right, so there's two ways to actually add compound to your corner. One, you could kind of just put it on the side like this, and then just keep applying it and then coming down and just keep getting it kind of on the side. This is definitely much easier if you don't have a lot of experience with that. Or another way is you go like this, get a nice glob of compound like this, and then put it sideways like so, and then drag it down, and then as you're dragging it down, you're laying it more and more flat. So you kind of start like this, drag, 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 and then you're flattening out. I mean, I do it that way because I know how to do it that way. You see that? Super easy doing it that way. The other way works as well, though. I actually really do like to use the corner tool for when you're doing this, just because it keeps a nice true 90 and you don't run a risk of cutting your paper, because if you go like this you could cut your paper. So here what you do is you just push that in, and then just drag it down, and then you know you have a pretty decent 90 degree here. We do want to clean up the sides basically by kind of going like right here. I'm putting my pressure on the side right there and just cleaning that up. The cleaner you do this, the easier it'll be to do the other two hands. So again, you see I'm like half an inch outside of that corner and just kind of dragging that and just to clean up the boogers on the sides. All right, so there's two ways you could do your screws. You could go kind of side down, so like a cross. I don't like that way because then you basically have little spots, because then you have to, when you're sanding, you have to sand the spot. What I like to do is kind of what we did with our corners. You put some of your compound on the side, put the tip in here, and then just drag it up, just like so, and then you clean it up going down. And then you'll see with our second and third hand, this will get a little bit bigger and bigger, and then when you sand it, it's super, super easy to sand. All right, so this is actually day 2. We got carried away with our shower floor over here. If you guys haven't been following that, you can go check that out, how to tile a shower. But so what we're going to be doing right now is our second hand of compound, and for that, typically you're just using your 10-inch compound knife. We're going to use Easy Sand 90 as well for this, just so hopefully it dries and we can actually complete the entire second hand today. I'll show you our butt joints, and I'll show you our seams, and then our corners. The first thing I'm going to hit is our butt joints, our seams, let that dry a little bit, and then do my corners so that when I'm dragging over it with my corners, I'm not scuffing it up. All right, so we're going to be doing our butt joints, and when I'm doing my butt joints, the second coat, I'm kind of going this type of overlap here, because then when you're doing your third coat of compound, you're overlapping with a 12-inch knife here, and then kind of going down the middle. So you just want to grab, a little globski right here, and then as you're dragging it down, keep the angle towards the inside, and then it forces it to stay inside. So if you go like this, you see how I'm angling it in, and then that compound is basically getting squeezed towards the paper. And then when you're doing the middle, the point of doing the middle, you're not trying to take compound away, you just want to flatten it out. So keep your putty knife flat, and then super lightly push it down. All right, so when we're doing our seam, we're kind of doing the same thing we just did on the butt joint. So again, I'm going to grab a glob of it, and I'm going to angle it up so that my compound wants to stay up and not droop down. So I'm going to come here. Alright, so now I'm working on this corner, and I'm just going to use my 6-inch putty knife here to kind of get this going, and then once I get below and kind of away from the corner itself, I'm going to use my corner tool, because the corner tool kind of gets sloppy as hell in these tight spots. So I'm just kind of going to work this out with my putty knife here. All right, so now we got to do our screws. When I do my second handle screws, I just get a little globski like this, put it on here, tilt it to the side, and just kind of go like that. And then kind of come around the side here, collect it. So again, kind of go down right down the middle like that, and then basically clean up the sides. So I'm putting pressure like this, you see over here. I'm putting pressure here, I'm putting pressure here, and then just cleaning it up. That's how you do your screws. All right. You're back. We're going to do our third hand and final hand of compound today. So I'm going to use a 10-inch putty knife on our corners, 12-inch putty knife on our seams and our butt joints. All right, so we're going to start with our butt joint, and essentially make sure that you're getting at least outside of the old compound that you did. So if our seam is in here, I want to make sure that I'm kind of coming out to here, and then on this side I'm coming out to here. So you're going to do a pass, and then you're going to do a pass in the middle. This one is kind of like nice and light, like you're not trying to gook it on there. The butt joint is definitely much wider than your seam is going to be, all right? All right, so now when we're doing our corner, kind of doing one of these globskis right here, and then putting it in here. Again, just kind of get the material up there, and then you're going to come back and clean it up. You're just focusing on this one side right here. Later on, we're going to try to dry this up faster, but later on we'll come back. But see how perfect it is? This is why I just do one side. There's less rustling of the boogers and all that stuff, and then we'll come back and do the other one next.